welcome to Independent Venue Week. I'm Simone Marie, and I'm going to be chatting to some key figureheads in the music industry about independent venues, their journey, and their musical career. And I hope you enjoy them. So I'm Simone Marie, and I'm going to be chatting to some of our favourite and most revered musicians throughout the week, doing little interviews, seeing what they're up to. And I figured a good place to start is the legend. Let's not play it down, Johnny Marr. Hello, Johnny.
Yeah, hi Simone.
Thanks for
inviting me.
You're most welcome. Most welcome. It's always a pleasure to chat to you. First of all, thanks for doing this. I know you're a busy man in the studio there, but we wanted to chat to you a little bit about independent music venues, amongst other things. And I was just wondering, like, what role have independent venues played in your early, mid, and current career?
Well, I mean, to my mind, like most British musicians, well, I guess it's the same all over the world, really. One of the first things you strive for is to get on a stage near you. Because obviously everyone strives to be the headliner at Glastonbury when you're 15, but when you start getting into rehearsal rooms and learning to write songs and getting it together, so to speak, you one of the first things you're doing is looking to find somewhere to play. That's the first mountain to climb, along with learning to write songs. That's the first thing. That myopically, everybody is like trying to get a gig. So, even as for lots of musicians starting out, they'll play in their school hall, which is what I did, to your mates, which is terrifying.
It's
actually more terrifying than Saturday night headlining Glastonbury. And
friends or your family is terrible, isn't it?
Oh, my family never bothered. Come on.
I always find that when you play like your hometown, you just know, like, as well as the kind of chaos of all of your friends and buddies and family, like asking for guest lists and stuff, but you just know you're going to turn around at one point in the song and just see them and have to make eye contact. And it's like, why is that? Why do we make that? I don't know.
I'm talking about, a little hall, school hall, or some like local civic centre or whatever. In my case, the first proper gig I played, it was in Wythenshawe Civic Centre, which is where I saw my very first gig. And I was with this band, and my mates showed up, and it was that was terrifying. I mean, my family did start coming to early gigs. I should make a joke about that. But to answer your question, so say in Manchester in the mid to late 70s, early 80s, when the Smiths were forming, you had a venue that is still open now, which is called the Band on the Wall. That had been open since, so I guess that started me. I don't even know whether that's like in between the wars. That's a famous venue, but they played a really important part. And so when the Smiths started out, and when I started out, there was places like Moles in Bath that a lot of musicians used to know. And, and then moving on, then you've got like names like King Tut's in Glasgow. These names, say King Tut's, for example, is become part of Oasis's story. The Ritz became part of, which is no longer independent, became synonymous with the Smiths' first gig. Right through rock culture, you've got venues, whether it's the Marquee in London or the 100 Club, that off the top of my head are synonymous with the foundations of British rock culture. And the same is echoed in the United States and places like CBGB's and, and the Fillmore. And I mean, it's what starts bands off. Bands don't just arrive ready to play Glastonbury. Well, unless you're a modern band with a,
unless you.
Well, less said about that. Really. The music does sound that way, but the music is, probably getting ahead of ourselves. But that's where music has got to now, the big patronage thing. So,
Yeah.
so you had, for my culture that I came out of, you had, generally speaking, you had three different levels. You had the smaller grassroots level, where you build in a name that then the media would, traditionally you get some decent reviews, and that would help you get a deal. You know, like record companies would come and see you, and often they'd see you in front of people who looked like you. You'd have a little scene going. That's why they would, in our case, that's why if you live in the provinces, if you're a band from Manchester or Liverpool or Edinburgh or Dublin, you have to have a bit of a scene to traditionally to get the people from the record companies to come and jump on a train or a boat and come over and see you. A good example, a recent example, that's a good story is Fontaine's DC, who started out playing in their friend / manager's club, you know, little bar. So you have that level, and then let's say the opposite end of the extreme then is you have these huge arena levels. What have been, there's been a culture in itself over the last, say, 20 years or so that people go to. That, to be fair, I've got a better experience for the audience as time's gone on. The sound's been better and the experience is better. But anyway, the area that I occupied with different bands, there and the Smiths and say bands like, I don't know, in the 80s, maybe Bunnymen and New Order and stuff for a big time, was the middle ground. You know, there was, and that seems to have disappeared. But you need the small venues to get what you are together.
Yeah, completely agree. Do you how do you work on creating a vibe in those really big arenas and those really big venues that we can all instantaneously get in those small venues? That's why they're kind of so magic, you know. You can see the whites of people's eyes. Do you think it's like, how do you personally go about trying to kind of bridge the gap between, like, a lot of those big venues are seen as a little bit soulless?
Well,
but
yeah,
you know,
well, they are. They are.
Yeah.
How you do it is you either do it by, okay, so people pay a lot of money to go and see a show in that. So you are, out of that ticket price, it's your responsibility and your duty to produce a big show. So you have a lot of production in there. What to the layman would be a lot of lights, good sound, all of that. I think so. You have a duty to do that, to put on a decent show. You need to fill the space, but you need. It sounds like a simplistic answer, but
no,
you need songs. You need either to be someone who's got a great back catalogue. Say someone like Pet Shop Boys. Again, I'm trying to think of people close to me, but where, you know, you go and see them and it's just this joyous hit after hit after hit, or you have a catalogue of songs that maybe are not so mainstream. Say someone who isn't quite so mainstream would be Nick Cave, who I saw do an amazing show just by being great. So it can be done. I mean, Nick's show at the Manchester Arena, I think, was the first show after the devastating tragedy, the Ariana Grande show. I think it was the first one that was at the Manchester Arena after that, and I went to it. And man, if ever there was a vibe in a place, that was anything but so. But a lot of that's to do with the circumstances and to do with Nick, you know. So it can be done. You know, I've seen some really good shows in arenas. You know, many.
Yeah, I saw Nick at the O2. And he has this ability to make these massive venues feel actually really intimate. You know, it's crazy. Have you ever discovered? Sorry, go on.
A lot of that is down to the songs. That's down to the songs and the musicians and the music, really. So it's great. That's the best way to do it. So, you know, they can be really soulless places. You know, I played them a lot with Hans Zimmer, and that's a really massive production. You know, you've got really big, usually dramatic music. So, and to be honest, I can't imagine playing that music anywhere other than an arena. It's made for it, you know. I mean, historically, like opera houses and You know, per se, big venues aren't bad per se. It's what you do in them and your responsibility to the audience that needs to be taken care of. So, you know, if you look at classical composers, you know, Wagner had his own symphonic hall that then he made music to fill. So the music needed to fill. A band, you know, little band ain't going to work. You know, the music doesn't sound right in a big place, but if you
Yeah.
do big music, it works there. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a matter of on a case by case basis, I guess.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Scotty Baldwin, who was Prince's front of house guy for many, many years. So he must have been good if Prince kept him on that long. And he said that he got to this one of these massive venues one day, and the acoustics and the sound were just terrible. And he goes, I want this venue to sound like my studio at home. And Scotty goes, well, it's possible. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So basically, you know, he took whatever equipment he needed to every single venue to set it up acoustically
Oh,
as
yeah.
much as possible, so that the sound was like, you know, I mean, you'd like to think that people notice a difference for things like that, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure.
the thing, I guess, you know, one of the reasons we're having this conversation, other than it's not with nice to have a chat as always,
So,
which we do often, is to remind everybody, I guess, in these times of to not get used to not go to shows.
yeah, so important.
Whatever all that does. This I don't know how many. I don't know how many people who are buying into the phrase "new normal." It's
No,
never.
I hate it. Like I hate that phrase, because I don't really like slogans that are forced upon us that define our sense of reality. I think we're all actually grasping for a sense of reality right now, and it ain't going to be done through this kind of marketing. You know, our perception of what's going on. I'm really against that. And there's so much to, you know, kick against at the moment. It's you know, without without losing the whole day to discuss this.
Yeah, but even if it's
quite
even if that phrase "the new normal" isn't done intentionally or with any kind of motive, I'm just it's never really stuck with me, and I don't think a lot of people. I don't think it sits right with a human really. I don't think anyone would sort of it feels right. So that said, it's you know, I'm obviously optimistically hoping that when the pandemic is over, that everybody just bursts out onto the streets and goes to see bands, and myself included. I'm really missing everything that we all know that a gig is. I mean, as a musician, I'm really missing playing in them. I'm missing, you know, for me, the buzz from on the stage is there's a lot of electricity around. I've always been kind of very sensitive to that. I'm very, very fortunate because I get to plug in and then just make this very loud noise, which hopefully I turn into something nice, something good. But it's a very physical thing for me. Shows for me, people may not believe this, but it's not about me being adored or even particularly liked, although, you know, I would hope to not to be disliked, but I don't really, as a person, I don't really feel like I need to feed off that. What the point I'm making is that what I think a gig is a communal thing, and it is all of us reveling and enjoying the tempo, the riffs, the lights, the energy, the 1.5 hours of cool music, and I think rock music is particularly high tempo, exciting rock music is particularly good for that. I know some other artists work on a different level, maybe, and there's plenty of room for acoustic music and something that's more about different kind of emotions. But you know what we do, and we've done it together when I played with Primal Scream. That's a really good. So it's a good thing to be involved with for an hour and a half.
It's such a buzz.
Whether you're on stage or in the audience, and we've got to remember that that's irreplaceable thing.
Yeah. What's your kind of? Do you have a kind of message? Because I mean, I don't know about you. I go in and out of, the sort of positive. I try not to force any kind of positivity if I don't feel it, but I try not to kind of like express the negative in a way. I kind of sit it out. Have you? Do you have any kind of message for people who are at home? Wondering if, because lots of businesses are going under, lots of venues are,
Yeah.
couldn't be saved by the money. Of course, we're going into Brexit. It's all a bit of a. Have you got any sort of message for
What,
fans and
do
people
you
who are
want me
just
to cheer?
like
Do you want me
hoping
to cheer up? Do you want me to just cheer millions of people up, Simone?
something like that? No pressure. Well, what do you do to stay positive? Is a better way to phrase the question.
No,
Positive or creative, either.
well, I just instinctively, okay, look, in terms of economics and politics, there are just so many more people who are much more expert than me,
Yeah.
who know all about the intricacies of it, and just know more than me. But I just instinctively, I mean, I don't think I'm a mug, but so I think I'm kind of realistic. But
Yeah.
I do think that. So, in terms of the big picture, I feel that in my lifetime we are going to see some amazing changes, and as often is always, unfortunately, it's often on the shoulders of young people. But
Yeah.
I think that we are going to. I can't, in my lifetime, I've seen in my lifetime there's been assassinations of great people. That was quite commonplace in the 70s and 60s. Um, and there's been all kinds of stuff. But I don't really remember a time because of the pandemic and Brexit and what's going on in America, this combination and what's going on with the ecology. I can't remember a time when people have just been ordinary people have just been so put upon with worry. It's been very, very bleak. And but there's just something instinctively that I think maybe because times have been so difficult, times are so difficult now, you kind of do think, well, it's got to, it's not going to change tomorrow, but maybe it's the dark before the dawn, I think. And I've always had an innate kind of belief in young people, but I do know quite a few younger people because I'm a parent, and I've got to sort of quite a lot of young people come to my shows, and I interact quite a lot of fans who are younger than me, and
And your
they're
son Niall is obviously out in the music industry making brilliant music. Got
yeah.
stuff. That's cool.
Well, in terms of Nile and stuff, and my daughter, so I've been around a lot of young musicians,
Yeah.
got a lot of fans. But what I was going to say was that I just have a real kind of understanding. I think that the younger generation have really, really global interests and global concerns. So, for
Yeah.
instance, to finish this thought, my generation was leaving school of the concern of my generation of young people leaving school was much more national. So, but the bands and everyone, it was the age of Thatcherism. I was part of the first 1 million unemployed school leavers generation. There was nationalisation was coming in. The mines were being shut down. Privatisation. The railways were being sold off. Thatcher was in. Reaganomics, Thatcherism, all of that. Our concerns as young people were much more national,
Yeah.
whereas now I think the young people, quite rightly, are much more corporate. Their concern is much more global, but also if you look at the rights, now the last 10 years, say particularly the rights of alternative genders, LGBTQ, WXYZ people, the change in attitudes towards people's personal identities and personal choices are entirely down to the younger generation. That my generation didn't do that. My generation did other things, but I think it's all to do with people from the ages 12 to whatever 35. Say that's what I've seen. They're entirely responsible for that shift. So that's one that I don't think there's any reason for that to change. I think so. There's choices to be made about how we consume, how we back the people who are causing a lot of problems. Well, perhaps the only way we have to beat that is just by not engaging with them, not buying their products, not doing it, you know? So anyway, it's a big, as I said, there's people who are much smarter than me. It's a bit of a big subject, but.
Yeah, it is totally. But yeah, there's something to be said for the power of abstinence, so to speak, not buying into things. But just to finish on a kind of positive note, in the balance of the universe, can you tell us a bit about what you're working on now, or what's next for you musically? What you're excited about?
Yeah, well, I'm working on.
Without giving too much away.
Yeah, I'm working on the new solo record. I say solo record, but you know, I've got my band and I've got some other musicians who are playing. Now, you're going to play on a couple of songs with us, aren't you?
I am very excited.
Yeah, so working on the new album, which the first lot of stuff I think is going to be out in, I hope, in about 8 to 10 weeks, maybe 12 weeks. So 3 months sounds like a long time. So I'm working on that. The idea is that I'm going to put out an EP first rather than just put out a single. I'm going to put out a few things. So the record's going to come out during this year. And then I've been doing, before the pandemic, I did the Bond film, which is still not out.
Oh yeah, God, I haven't seen it because they pulled it because the cinemas were shut and they didn't want to have it just go straight to, screen.
Yeah,
which makes sense, really.
I enjoyed doing it. I think the films, I like a Bond film, and it was amazing to play. Down. Did
you used to play that before? Had you had to go at that riff?
Well, yeah. When you're a kid, it's one of the first things that you learn to play. It's I don't really like the word iconic, sort of overused, but it is an iconic riff.
I suppose it's the equivalent to the Peter Gunn for bass, isn't it?
But it's really, technically, it's very, very simple to play. But when you're actually playing it properly on the Bond film, it's dangerously easy.
That's pretty surreal.
Dangerously easy to fuck up. It's one of the
red light syndrome.
There's like 3 notes in it, but it really is. You are really like walking the tightrope when you're out there with the orchestra. That was an amazing moment. So I did that, and I've been doing.
So cool.
I've been working on this sort of with a friend of mine. I suppose he won't mind me mentioning it. I've been doing some tracks with a friend of mine called MC Search, who was in a band called Third Base, and he's putting together like a new sort of hip hop project. And that's been really interesting because just something I haven't sort of.
So many different styles. And I just heard, I played it actually on the show. The track that you did with Avalanches featuring Management. That's cool.
Oh yeah, of course, the Avalanches track. Well, that turned out great. It's a really lovely song.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that a while ago, and it's. I mean, people are telling me they're hearing it everywhere. That it's on the radio a lot. So
it's one of the not to brown nose you, but I think it's one of the standout tracks. That and there's one with Tricky as well, which is great.
Yeah, no, I heard the Tricky track. Yeah, it's good. So, but as always, just very lucky. Feel very blessed to be working. Doing what I do. When the pandemic happened, suddenly a lot of people I know decided that they wanted guitars on their solo records they hadn't finished yet, that they've been working on for a while. So a lot of my friends were suddenly like, oh, okay, now's the time to finish that solo record.
Yeah.
What's Johnny doing? I was like, oh, I'm on tour. They're like, no, you're not. You're in your garden.
You can't use that anymore.
Don't bullshit me. I was like, oh, yeah. So I've been doing that. But anyway, when are you going to get up here and play on a couple of these songs?
Oh man, I've got it planned. I've got my face mask, my many face masks, and all my gloves, and booking trains safely and all that as we speak. So yeah, I literally cannot wait.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. Well, we got your rider in advance. We know. You've got your stage lounge in the
Yeah,
great.
sorry. I mean, I tried to keep it down to 4 sides of A4, but you know, girls got to have what a girl's got to have.
And it's 3 chihuahuas, not 2, right? It's just
Yeah,
3.
one of them's got to be all white as well.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we've got an all black one, an all white one, and one that's in between.
Yeah, and RuPaul does have to feed me grapes most of the time and scatter rose petals when I walk.
Yeah, well, I've got a brother-in-law called Paul. It might have to do with him.
That'll do.
He's nice. He's nice.
With a frock, no problem. You know, it's just I like to keep it down to earth, Johnny. You know me. I'm a simple lass.
Oh yeah.
On that note, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, and thank you for joining us on Independent Venue Week.
Yeah, well, look, I'll tell just you know, to anyone watching who's obviously a fan of live music, it will be better. It might be a while. I don't think it's going to be a matter of years. I think my instinct is that next summer we'll all be out, go to see shows. Maybe we'll start in spring. Me and my band are kind of like, we're going to be at the starting line, kind of ready to go out and do it. You know, I am hearing of a lot of bands who are in the same position, who are just ready to go. Speaking probably for a lot of musicians, if it isn't entirely full, if we have to do a little bit of that, I'm on board with that. You know, I'm cool with that personally. I think a lot of other musicians will do that. So we will meet again, all of us.
Love it.